There are many things you hear about livestock production and meat and poultry products that simply aren't true. Now the experts are giving you the true story. Few people realize that many universities offer degrees in animal and meat science. These scientists help ensure that the livestock we produce are healthy and high quality, and that the meat and poultry we eat is safe and nutritious. While these experts know a whole lot about meat, few Americans do. Recent polling has identified the top meat myths. What follows are the reactions and the facts from our nation's leading experts, who gathered at the annual meeting of the American Meat Science Association.
So Dr. Michael, you're an expert on cattle production, and consumers are telling us that they think that there are nutrition advantages to eating grass-fed beef versus corn-fed beef. Can you give us the facts?
Well, and that's one of the things they really need to understand when they're talking about nutritional differences. There really are no nutritional differences between either one. They're both great sources of protein, they're packed with vitamins, so either one is a great product to be consuming.
Well, sometimes they say that you get more omega-3s from grass-fed beef. Is that true?
Well, and that's one of the things that you do here. And when you go out and look at the research data that's out there, those are very, very minute differences, and they really don't contribute to the diet when you look at the other sources of omega-3s that we can add in. So it's not something we really should be telling consumers that they can do.
So when consumers want omega-3s, where do they go?
Well, they need to go to the fish products there. You know,
Okay.
that's where they're going to get their real loads of omega-3s. But if you want just good B vitamins and good iron and protein, that's where you eat grass-finished or you know, your grain-finished beef. Either one, they're really good.
So what's your advice to the consumer?
Eat whatever you like. Beef is great.
So Dr. Lawrence, consumers tell us that they think that maybe corn feeding of cattle is unnatural. And I think this is because corn's been vilified a bit by the book Omnivore's Dilemma. What are the facts about feeding cattle corn? Is it natural?
Feeding cattle corn is very natural. And I'd like to point out that all cattle eat some form of roughage, a grass diet, somewhere during their lifetime, predominantly up through the feeding period. And in the feeding period, cattle are fed primarily a corn-based diet or some other cereal grain. And consumers need to understand that feeding cereal grains to cattle is just a form of feeding them grass. Corn is the seed of that grass, and so they're continuing to get that roughage-based, forage-fed diet, albeit in a cereal grain form, near the end of their finishing period. One thing I'd like to also point out is that cattle have a personal nutritionist when they're in a feed yard, providing a well-balanced diet with all the protein, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins, and minerals that they need to grow and maintain a healthy lifestyle during finishing period. Cattle that are not in a feedlot don't have that well-balanced, fortified diet, and very rarely have a personal nutritionist watching over their daily intake.
Sounds like some of these cattle are eating better than many Americans.
They're eating a much more balanced diet than most Americans.
So let me ask you, if you sent cattle into a pen and gave them a choice between eating grass and eating corn, what would they choose?
Oh, most certainly corn. In fact, I know a Texas panhandle cattle feeder who actually tried this experiment at one of his feed yards just to see what would happen. He took a group of cattle, all from the same location, and split them into two groups. One group was confined to their normal feeding pen and fed their corn-based diet. The second group was in a pen at the edge of the feed yard. The gate was open and the cattle could roam out into the grass pasture as they pleased. What do you think they did?
What'd they do?
When the feed truck came by, they went immediately to the bunk and ate their corn-based diet, well balanced by their personal nutritionist, fortified for all the vitamins, minerals, carbs, proteins, and fats that they need to grow and maintain a healthy body. And then at the end of their consumption, they'd go lay in the grass.
Okay, so what you're telling me is consumers can rest assured that giving cattle corn is a perfectly natural thing that they like.
Very natural, and something they prefer when given the opportunity.
Well, consumers tell us that based upon some books they're reading and movies they're seeing, they believe that if cattle are grass-fed only, they won't have E. coli 0157 ever. Is that true?
Absolutely not. And in fact, some books that say that are just not following the science, because E. coli and E. coli 015787 are bacteria that are in all of our environments. And in fact, we say they're ubiquitous to the environment, meaning they're everywhere. And so any food product that's produced in a farm or field is subject to contamination with those bacteria, and sometimes they can get into the food chain in low quantities.
Where does this myth come from about grass feeding and its food safety benefits?
I think that there's been some media that have picked up that grass feeding is maybe a more sustainable sort of production practice, or perhaps a more locally derived production system. But and in some cases that could be true, but in most cases it has nothing to do with food safety.
So what's your advice to consumers who are trying to choose grass-fed versus grain-fed beef?
I think they should choose based on the production system that fits their needs the best, their value system the best, and their taste buds the best, because there's obviously a difference between those two types of beef and the way they taste. Grass-fed beef is quite a bit stronger flavor, while corn-fed beef has a bit milder flavor. Most Americans prefer the corn-fed beef, but some people like the real strong flavor of a grass-fed product.
So it sounds like they're both great choices?
They're both great choices, and any consumer that runs into either product in the retail grocery store can buy either one, knowing that both have been produced under the safest conditions that are possible.